Hey, friends. I hope this finds you well. Today, we start a new series, and this one is on emotions. So I hope you enjoy it. So, when I say the word control, what comes to mind? Probably nothing good, right? Most of us don't have all the positive vibes when we think about that particular word. And why? Well, because nobody wants to be controlled. Nobody. Who wants to be told what to do? Again, nobody. In fact, I bet you feel that more than anyone else. Between curfews and driving restrictions and attendance policies and athletics rules and that one teacher who literally wants to control when people go to the bathroom, imagine it feels like everywhere you guys turn, someone is trying to have control over you. And that is supremely annoying. Yes. I think most of us would agree that we don't love the idea of being under someone's control or being told what to do, really. We all want to do what we want to do when we want to do it. It's part of being human. But here's the thing, as much as we resist the idea of being under control, all of us are. Every single one of us are. We would probably never say it this way, but all of us are controlled in some way or another by our emotions, our moods, or our vibes. So I'm if you've ever been around little kids, sorry, I had to adjust my screen there. If you've ever been around little kids, you know that this is incredibly true. You take away their cookie or you ask them to share their toy, and you'll feel the really bad vibes really quickly. But it's not just a child thing. This is a teenage thing and even an adult thing, too. Think about it. How many times have you seen an adult let their emotions get the best of them? Probably more than a few times. And I'm guessing you can remember a situation where your own emotions got you in trouble. Like maybe you got into an argument with a parent and you said something in the middle of the argument that led to you being grounded because your anger took over. You said some pretty terrible things about another person because jealousy took over, and you look back and think, what was I doing? That doesn't even sound like me. Sometimes our emotions take control, and when that happens, we don't always make the best decisions. In fact, before we go any further, I want you to take a minute and think of a negative emotion that has the most control over you. What's the one emotion that when you feel it, it almost always seems to take over? What's the emotion that shows up the most often, sometimes without you even realizing it? Maybe it's anger, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's loneliness, maybe it's guilt. Which one of those shows up the most for you? We all have one. But chances are we've learned in some way or another how to monitor this particular emotion. We can cover it up when we need to. We may slam the door when we're angry at home, but when a teacher makes us mad, we don't slam the door. We may let jealousy control us when it comes to an ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, but we don't do anything stalkerish about it. At least I hope we're not doing anything stalkerish about it. So, we can monitor our feelings and emotions to a certain degree. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But is monitoring really the solution? What if there was a better way, y'all? What if there was a solution that went beyond just monitoring this emotion that has so much control over us? So, the thing that I love so much about Jesus is that what he teaches is helpful for everyone, whether you consider yourself a Christian or not. This topic is definitely one of those areas. And he invites people to do something that goes way beyond monitoring our emotions. The cool thing is that if what he says is true, then it has a potential, y'all, to make us free. And isn't this what we really want? Don't we all want freedom? We don't want to be controlled by anyone or anything, including our emotions. And it seems like Jesus is offering the solution for that. So, this passage that I'm about to read begins with Jesus and his disciples. It's found in the Gospel of Mark. The Pharisees, who were the teachers of the law, who were known for being super religious, were also known, sorry, who were known, I just lost the place of my notes. The Pharisees, who were known for being really religious, asked Jesus this question. My bad. Sorry about that. This is from Mark chapter 7, verse 5. They say, "Why don't your disciples live according to the tradition of the elders instead of eating their food with defiled hands?" In other words, why don't your disciples wash their hands before they eat? Gross, right? But you have to understand that back then, there was very little water. And when you did have some, you weren't thrilled at the idea of pouring it all over your hands. But it was bigger than hygiene. The Pharisees were bothered because of what it meant religiously. They were accusing Jesus of breaking the law of the elders, which was the law that was passed down, get this, by word of mouth. That part's important. Don't forget that. So there was also written law, which Moses received from God. That included the 10 commandments as well as 103 other commandments. And then there was the laws that were passed down, like I said a few minutes ago, by word of mouth. And it was tricky because sometimes the oral law was in conflict with the written law. The whole situation was super confusing. So Jesus answers in a sort of genius way. Instead of coming for them directly, he quotes the prophet Isaiah. He says, "Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites. As it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain. Their teachings are merely human rules." And then, in case what Jesus was saying wasn't totally clear, he sums it up this way. "You have let go of the commands of God and are holding on to human traditions." In other words, Jesus is saying, you're not trying to lead people closer to God. You're looking to make power plays that keep you in charge and keep other people under your control. And that's not the way God works. But Jesus wasn't done when he said all that. "Listen to me, everyone, and understand this," Jesus says. "Nothing outside of a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them." This means that the fact that the disciples didn't wash their hands did not make God mad at them. God is bigger and God is better than that. Back in the day, God gave people the law because he had their best interests in mind. He wasn't trying to keep himself happy by controlling and manipulating their behavior. And Jesus basically says, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth and goes into the stomach and then out of the body, that's not what defiles someone. It's like a biology lesson. What goes in must come out. But what comes out of a person's mouth, those are the things that defile them, which basically means that those are the things that come out are the things that put them in conflict with God. We aren't in conflict with God because we accidentally eat the wrong thing. We're in conflict with God when what comes out of our mouths hurts the people that God loves. And spoiler alert, y'all, God loves everyone. That was the whole theme of Jesus' teaching. That God loves you, the person beside you, the one in front of you, behind you, next to you at school, beside you in the car, in your neighborhood, and on and on and on. God loves all the people. In fact, you could say that everything Jesus taught really centered on that idea. How we love God by loving people. But we're not going to stop there, because when Jesus talks about what puts us in conflict with God, he talks about how the source of our offensive words and deeds is inside of us. It's the emotions that we're trying to monitor and control. This is what Jesus said, "For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come." Haven't you found this to be true? Everything begins with a thought. Jesus mentions murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, and folly. Every one of those things begins with a thought. And the last word he says, folly, that really sums it up. Folly is just bad judgment. And your greatest regrets with friends and family were the result of bad judgment. Anytime you look back and think, how could I have been so stupid? Why would I do such a thing? Or why would I say something like that? That's folly. And Jesus is saying, all that stuff that starts in your thoughts and emotions, that could become folly. And he cares about what could happen as a result of it. And here's how this is connected to what we're going to be talking about for the next couple of weeks. The negative emotion that we try to monitor, the anger that we don't seem to have control over, the fear that we look at and wish we could just chill out a little bit over. It comes from our internal environment, our emotions. So for the next couple of weeks, we're going to start paying more attention to the world inside of ourselves. And we're going to try to form a habit telling ourselves that it doesn't have to control us anymore. Maybe it controlled us in the past. We let it lead us toward making mistakes and hurting others, but not anymore. We're going to stop giving it that type of power. Now, here's the reality. Emotions are not always bad. Emotions are part of being human, and they help us figure out what's right and what's wrong around us. But when they control us and make us do things that we don't want to do, and when they keep us from living the full life that Jesus intends for us, then our emotions are not helpful anymore, and we have to rethink how we're handling them. To do that, I want us to remember one simple truth. Because of Jesus, emotions don't have to be the boss of you. Jesus is a way better boss than any negative emotions that you feel. And he can give you the strength to stand up to that emotion that's trying to control you. The truth is, we live in a culture that doesn't really help us see and talk about emotions and those things that are going on inside of us. Our culture doesn't help us talk about those things at all, really, but especially not in a healthy way. We can be made to feel weak or overly sensitive for talking about our emotions. But y'all, here's the truth. It's good for all of us to learn how to name what emotions we're experiencing and then learn how to keep them from controlling us. Because when our emotions control us, we end up doing or saying things that hurt ourselves or other people. So 2 things that I'd love for you to try. 1, try to think of the top 1 or 2 emotions that you have the hardest time controlling. These are the emotions that control you more than you'd like. Maybe it's anger or fear or insecurity or jealousy or greed or anxiety or anything. What is the one emotion that no matter how hard you try, it keeps showing up? Number 2, start checking in with yourself. This week, I want you to begin asking yourself at the start of each day, how am I really doing? As you look back on the day before, or maybe you do this check-in with yourself at the end of the day, whatever it is, as you look back on a day, I want you to pay attention to the emotions that were a big part of it. Were they positive or were they negative? If there were some negative ones, are you still holding on to them? What caused you to feel those negative emotions? Was it a person or a situation? Pay attention to the emotions you are holding on to. Are you mad at someone? Did someone say or do something to hurt you? As uncomfortable as this may feel to do, there's a reason we start here. Because the feelings we hold on to overflow into the lives of others, and that's a big deal. We need to figure out what caused them and how we can handle them. We weren't made to ignore emotions, and we weren't made to become numb to them. If we ignore them, they come back stronger than ever, and they tend to control us. If we numb the negative emotions, we numb the positive ones as well. God didn't create us not to feel. Feeling is good, even the difficult stuff. We just have to figure out what to do next. If you're a Jesus follower, this is a big deal because emotions are not meant to be the boss of us. Jesus was meant to be the boss of us. and he's a way better boss. How do I know? In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Another time, Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." In other words, Jesus is a way better boss than any vibe or emotion that we feel. He's worth listening to when it comes to how we handle the emotions that we have. And if you follow him, you'll find out for yourself. Remember, because of Jesus, emotions don't have to be the boss of you. Now imagine if this actually became a reality. What if you were confident that the emotions and moods and vibes that control you are no longer your boss? How different would your life be? Or think about it this way. How different would your home look if the other people in your family didn't let their emotions control them? What if your mom didn't let fear control her, or your dad didn't let anger control him, or your stepbrother didn't let jealousy control him? How different would things be? I'm guessing a lot. I'm also guessing that it isn't easy. That's why I want to encourage you guys to talk to somebody, whether it's a pastor here at Union, or whether it's one of your youth leaders, or a parent, or a friend, or a teacher, whoever it is. Talk to someone to help you figure out how the real life stuff we're talking about here can actually happen in our regular lives. I pray for you guys, and I hope you're doing well. I love you, and I miss you. See you soon.